Picture this. You walk into a friend's living room, right? And there is a dog curled up on the sofa.
Oh, the classic sofa dog pose.
Yeah, but, curled up doesn't even really do it justice. I mean, this dog is practically entirely submerged under a thick fleece blanket.
Right, you can barely see them.
Exactly. You might just see the very tip of, like, a long, aerodynamic nose protruding from the fabric. A vacuum cleaner could go off in the hallway, the doorbell could ring, and maybe one eye opens for a fraction of a second before just slowly sliding shut again.
It's incredible.
The dog has basically disappeared into the furniture. You are looking at an absolute masterclass in mammalian relaxation.
It really is. It's a completely undisturbed, almost cat-like tranquility.
And you're standing there thinking, okay, this has to be the most low-key, low-energy animal on the planet.
Sure, it's an easy assumption to make.
But then, let's say 10 minutes later, that exact same dog is standing by the back glass door, and a squirrel makes the fatal mistake of darting across the lawn.
And everything changes.
In a fraction of a second, the sofa dog just completely vanishes. The head snaps up. The body goes completely rigid, muscles coiling like a spring. The eyes lock onto that singular point of movement.
Yes, that hyperfixation.
And the dog isn't barking or thrashing around. It's
Right.
just intensely, utterly focused. It's like watching an ancient, hyper-focused hunter violently hijack the body of a modern house pet.
You are suddenly looking at a completely different animal, biologically speaking.
Right.
The transformation happens in the blink of an eye, and it is, entirely involuntary.
That Jekyll and Hyde transformation is exactly what we are focusing our mission on today. So welcome to the deep dive.
Glad to be here.
Today, we are pulling together behavioral psychology, veterinary science, and canine neurology to decode the incredibly contradictory mind of the Whippet.
It's a fascinating subject.
It really is. And this isn't just a basic overview of a dog breed. We are building a full-blown psychological profile of an animal to understand why it behaves the way it does.
Because to understand a dog like this, you have to be willing to completely throw out your traditional expectations of what obedience looks like.
Right, you can't just use standard dog metric.
Exactly. You have to stop looking for a creature that blindly follows orders, and instead learn how to read the incredibly subtle cues of a highly observant, deeply instinctual mind.
And even if you, listening right now, never plan on owning a dog, let alone a sighthound, stick with us. Because this exploration of how ancient, hardwired survival instincts violently clash with modern domestic living room life is just an incredible case study in behavioral psychology and neurology.
Oh, absolutely. It's universally applicable in a lot of ways.
Okay, let's unpack this, starting with the architecture of the animal itself. Because before we can ask if they're easy to train, we have to understand what a sighthound actually is, mechanically speaking.
That is the perfect starting point. Because, the hardware dictates the software. A sighthound, which includes Whippets, Greyhounds, Seleucus, is built fundamentally differently from a scent hound like a beagle or a working dog like a mastiff.
How so?
Well, anatomically, they possess a 270-degree field of vision.
270, wow.
Yeah, and their retinas have a pronounced visual streak, which is an unusually dense concentration of ganglion cells aligned horizontally. It basically acts like a biological motion detector.
So they see everything.
They can spot a rabbit twitching half a mile away. Add to that a uniquely flexible spine and a double suspension gallop, and you have an animal genetically engineered to process visual data and immediately convert it into blistering speed.
So when people see that sleek, fast dog and ask, are they actually easy to train? They are often applying a generalized standard to a highly specialized machine.
Exactly. They're asking the wrong question.
Right. The consensus across behavioral studies is that Whippets are highly intelligent and incredibly observant, but they absolutely despise repetitive obedience drills.
Well, they loathe them.
The ones telling the dog to sit, stay, come, sit, stay, over and over for an hour. If a Whippet loses interest during one of those dull drills and wanders off, people often label the dog as stubborn.
Which is such a misunderstanding.
But that label entirely misses the mark, right? They aren't being stubborn. They are clearly communicating that the teaching format is failing their specific neurological setup.
What's fascinating here is the evolutionary context. Think about a herding dog like a border collie.
Sure.
For centuries, they were bred to work in constant, active partnership with a human shepherd, taking continuous micro-directions all day long. Their brain actually rewards them for looking to the human for the next command.
So drills make sense to them.
Repetitive drills make complete sense to them. A sighthound, historically, was bred to spot prey in the distance and chase it down independently.
Out on their own.
Right. Once they launch, they're making split-second tactical decisions at 40 miles an hour. They aren't looking back at the human for permission.
So treating a Whippet like a golden retriever is like trying to use a spreadsheet to edit a photo.
I love that comparison.
It's just the wrong software for the hardware. You're going to get frustrated and the computer's going to crash.
Precisely. When you ask that independent problem-solving mind to sit and stand in a living room 20 times in a row for no apparent reason, they're going to look at you, realize there is no functional purpose to the exercise, and simply clock out.
They just walk away.
They solve the puzzle immediately and get bored.
The functional approach, then, requires very short sessions with real, tangible motivation. We're talking high-value food, play, praise, or granting access to things they actually want in the environment.
Exactly. You need currency they value.
But looking at this critically, if I have to use a piece of chicken every time I want the dog to listen, am I just running a bribery scheme? I mean, does that fundamentally undermine human authority?
It is a common concern, but it really mischaracterizes how canine learning works. It isn't bribery. It is compensation.
Compensation, okay.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you wouldn't go to your job every day if your boss suddenly stopped paying you. Right.
Fair point. I definitely wouldn't.
You wouldn't call a paycheck a bribe. You'd call it a fair exchange of energy. With a sighthound, you are building mutual respect.
So what does a bribe actually look like then?
A bribe happens when a dog is already misbehaving, say, barking at the window, and you wave a hot dog in their face to beg them to stop. That rewards the bad behavior.
Oh, I see.
True motivation is establishing a low-pressure partnership where the dog willingly chooses to collaborate with you because they trust that the outcome is mutually beneficial.
You're paying them for a job well done, not negotiating with a terrorist mid-tantrum.
Exactly.
And the reason you can't just force compliance through sheer dominance brings us to the core of their emotional makeup, which is profound sensitivity. This isn't just a physical fragility, it's an emotional one.
They are incredibly soft-tempered animals, and that sensitivity is a double-edged sword. It makes them wonderful, highly empathetic companions who can seamlessly read your mood. But it means the margin for error in how you communicate with them is incredibly small.
So your tone of voice and your body language carry massive weight.
Huge weight.
Shouting, rough handling, or harsh physical corrections, the kind of old-school, tough love dog training you still see floating around, will absolutely destroy your relationship with this breed.
It's the worst thing you can do.
It doesn't yield an obedient Whippet. It yields a dog that completely and utterly shuts down.
Because the moment you introduce fear or intimidation, you trigger an amygdala hijack.
An amygdala hijack.
Right. The Whippet's brain instantly switches from a cognitive learning state to a purely survival state. They are no longer processing what you want them to do. They're only processing that you are a sudden, unpredictable threat.
It's not so different from human psychology. I mean, if you make a mistake at work and your manager screams in your face, you don't suddenly become a better employee.
No, of course not.
You freeze up, you panic, and you lose all trust in that manager. But how does that work in practice with the dog? Like, if you can't raise your voice when they do something genuinely dangerous, like chewing a power cord, how do you establish any functional boundaries?
This raises an important question about the difference between leadership and tyranny.
Okay.
Calm consistency establishes boundaries far more effectively than harshness. If the dog is chewing the power cord, you don't scream and strike the animal.
Right.
You calmly interrupt the behavior, perhaps with a sharp but neutral sound. Remove the dog from the danger, and immediately provide an appropriate chew toy.
So the redirection is the key.
Exactly. Redirection provides the rigid boundary. The cord is strictly off limits, but it does so without breaking the foundational trust. You are acting as a reliable, predictable partner who guides them, rather than a volatile dictator who terrifies them.
Because without that foundational trust, everything else falls apart. But even when you build this beautiful low-pressure partnership, there is one biological switch that can completely override all of that careful communication.
And that is the prey drive.
Right, the prey drive.
This is where the romantic ideal of modern domestic dog training collides violently with the brutal reality of thousands of years of genetics.
Prey drive is triggered primarily by sight and fast movement. It could be a squirrel, a rabbit, a cyclist, or even a sprinting child in the backyard.
anything moving fast.
And the crucial distinction to understand here is that this is a predatory sequence, not an aggressive one. The dog isn't chasing a cyclist out of malice or anger, right?
Not at all.
The world moved fast, their visual cortex processed it, and their brain bypassed all logic to scream, chase!
Exactly. And for the owner, managing this requires recognizing the preamble to that predatory sequence. It happens in milliseconds.
That preamble is fascinating. It's that moment of sudden, absolute stillness we talked about at the beginning. The hard stare, the head lifting up, the body taking on that coiled, spring-like tension.
So then the only window you have.
If you are watching your dog, that tiny window of stillness is your only chance to intervene. Because once they launch, recall training, calling your dog back to you, has terrifying limits.
Limits that people often underestimate.
You can practice calling a Whippet back every single day for years with the best treats in the world, but if they are in full flight after a rabbit in an open field, they are not coming back until the chase ends.
The physiological mechanism behind that is what makes it so unstoppable. Once the predatory sequence is fully engaged, an enormous surge of adrenaline and dopamine floods the brain.
Wow.
This creates a phenomenon known as sensory gating. To maximize survival efficiency and focus entirely on the visual tracking of the fleeing target, the brain literally dumps non-essential sensory input.
So they just don't hear you.
Their auditory processing essentially shuts down. Processing the sound of your voice shouting their name wastes milliseconds of brain power. So the brain just stops listening. They aren't actively ignoring you. In that moment, your voice simply no longer exists in their reality.
It's like an unstoppable line of code triggering a full system reboot. You can program the manual controls all day, but when that specific survival code runs, you are totally locked out of the system.
Which leads to the single most crucial realization for anyone living with a sighthound. Recall is a skill, but safety is a system.
Safety is a system. I like that.
You cannot train away a biological survival instinct. You can only manage the environment in which it operates.
That means physical management is the priority. Secure fences that are regularly checked and strict leash wearing anywhere near roads or unfenced areas.
Absolutely essential.
Attempting mid-chase corrections is useless because the instinct is too old and too powerful.
It forces you to be a proactive manager rather than a reactive one. If you wait to react until the dog is already accelerating toward a busy street after a squirrel, the safety system failed before the dog even started running.
Because that outdoor world is essentially a chaotic landscape filled with uncontrollable, fast-moving triggers, the dog's nervous system needs a place to recover.
They need a sanctuary.
Right. The indoor environment has to serve as a meticulously managed sanctuary. It can't just be an indoor dog park. It has to be a recovery chamber for that sofa dog personality to recharge.
The contrast between the outside world and the inside world is vital for their neurological health.
Building that sanctuary starts with baseline structural safety. Physically checking gates before letting them out, teaching visitors the absolute rules about not leaving front doors open, and leash walking to prevent sudden lunges.
Basic management, yeah.
But inside the house itself, the psychology has to signal a return to stillness. Now, you'd think a dog bred to sprint needs to play high-energy games indoors, like intensely throwing a ball down the hallway to burn off energy while safely enclosed.
It's a very common misconception.
But doing that actually destroys their mental baseline, doesn't it?
If we connect this to the bigger picture of canine neurology, indoor fetch is often disastrous for a sighthound. When a dog sprints, their cortisol and adrenaline levels spike dramatically. In a natural environment, that spike serves a purpose and then dissipates. But if you constantly play hyper-arousing games indoors, you are conditioning the dog's brain to view the living room as an arena for high adrenaline.
You're just hyping them up.
You never allow their nervous system baseline to return to normal. You aren't tiring them out. You're just building an endurance athlete with chronic stress.
Wow.
The sprint is for the outside world. The psychology of the house must explicitly signal, this is where we power down.
That is a massive perspective shift. You have to actively cultivate their ability to do nothing.
Exactly.
But that doesn't mean indoor training stops. You still have to deliberately teach household manners, settling on a mat, greeting guests politely, and crucially, alone time comfort.
Yes, separation distress is highly prevalent.
These dogs bond intensely with their people. And if a Whippet is showing severe panic when left alone, destructive behavior, house soiling, uncontrollable vocalizing, that is not something you can just wait out.
No, and physical exhaustion won't cure it either. You can take them for a 5-mile run, But physical fatigue does not stop a neurological panic response.
Right.
Separation anxiety requires systematic desensitization.
Which means what, exactly, in practical terms, like for a normal owner?
It means breaking down the exact sequence of events that triggers the panic and stripping the meaning away from them.
Okay, give me an example.
Well, if picking up your keys causes the dog to start panting and pacing, you practice picking up your keys and then just sitting back down on the couch 50 times a day until the keys mean nothing.
Oh, I see.
Then you move to touching the doorknob, then opening the door for 1 second. You are systematically rebuilding the dog's neurological response to your absence through micro-exposures that never push the dog into actual fear.
This sounds exhausting.
It is a slow, methodical process, often requiring a behavioral vet.
So you really have to manage their internal arousal carefully. And that naturally dictates how we must manage their external relationships, specifically with the unpredictable elements of a household. Let's talk about the reality of the fragile speedster interacting with kids and other pets.
Socialization for a highly sensitive breed isn't just about puppy playdates. It is a lifelong process of calm exposure.
Right.
The goal isn't to have the dog interact with everything. The goal is teaching the dog to simply notice the world without becoming overwhelmed by it.
When it comes to children, the rules are non-negotiable. Total supervision, no forced hugging, no pulling at ears, and absolutely no shrieking or sprinting around the dog.
That last one is so important.
Because a child running erratically across the yard while yelling can accidentally trigger the exact same chase instinct as a fleeing rabbit.
To a sighthound's brain, high-pitched sounds combined with erratic, fast movement is a highly stimulating cocktail.
It's the ultimate trigger.
It can completely bypass the logical, this is a human child part of the brain, and tap straight into the, this is fast movement, chase it instinct.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. The way their brain categorizes other animals based entirely on context.
Oh, the context shift is wild.
A whippet might sleep curled up on the sofa, sharing a fleece blanket with the family cat. But if that exact same cat goes outside and accelerates across the open backyard, the whippet might suddenly view it as prey.
It happens all the time.
So their brain literally redraws the boundary of family the second the cat crosses the threshold into an open space.
It feels like a glitch in the matrix, but it's a brilliant demonstration of contextual categorization in predator psychology.
A glitch in the matrix, yeah.
Inside the house, the cat is part of the calm, non-arousing environmental baseline. The context is family. But the moment the cat is outdoors and accelerating, the visual trigger of speed in an open space totally overrides facial recognition. The context shifts immediately from family member to fleeing target. It proves that familiarity does not automatically transfer across different environments.
Which means you can never assume they simply know better. And the parameters for smaller pets are absolute. Rabbits, guinea pigs, small rodents, these must never be left unsupervised with a whippet.
Never.
It's not a failure of your training if you keep them separated. It is simply responsible management of thousands of years of genetics.
And that management extends to how they interact with their own species, too. Dog parks, for instance, are often a terrible environment for a whippet.
The mechanics of play styles really matter here. Whippets have notoriously thin skin, literally. They lack heavy fur coats and thick fat layers.
That's fragile.
Their play style is entirely chase-based parallel, running at high speeds. But if you put them in a chaotic dog park with bulky, heavy breeds whose playstyle involves wrestling, body slamming, or pinning, the whippet can be seriously injured in seconds.
It's like bringing a Formula One car to a monster truck rally.
That's a great way to put it.
The suspension simply isn't built for vertical impact. It is only engineered for forward velocity. They need carefully selected playmates with similar light-footed playstyles.
So we've covered how environment, anatomy, and ancient instincts dictate their behavior, which leads us to the final and perhaps most vital piece of the puzzle, using behavior as a diagnostic tool.
This is crucial for any owner.
When a well-managed, highly routine dog's behavior suddenly changes, it is rarely a sudden behavioral rebellion, right? It is almost always a medical alert.
The body and the mind are the exact same conversation. You cannot separate them.
To monitor this, practicing gentle physical handling, routinely checking their paws, looking in their mouth, feeling their skin, isn't just a fun bonding trick. It is essential healthcare preparation.
Absolutely.
Because if they are deeply comfortable with you touching them, you will instantly notice when something feels inflamed or when they suddenly pull away from a routine touch.
And behavioral shifts, too.
Right. If your normally calm dog suddenly becomes unusually quiet, refuses a walk, gets oddly irritable, starts hiding under a bed, or just resists putting on their walking harness. It's not because they woke up deciding to be stubborn, it's often the very first sign of physical pain.
Recognizing this requires a high degree of critical thinking.
Hmm.
You have to learn to look past the dog is growling at the harness and ask why it's happening.
Yeah.
Evolutionarily, animals hide pain incredibly well. In the wild, appearing weak or injured makes you an immediate target for other predators, so pain is suppressed physically and manifests instead as subtle behavioral shifts.
So if your dog suddenly starts acting grumpy about going up the stairs, it's not them throwing a teenage tantrum. It's basically their version of a check engine light flashing on the dashboard.
I like that analogy.
The software is glitching because there is a problem with the hardware.
Exactly. A joint might ache, their vision might be blurring, they might have digestive cramping. Recognizing those behavioral shifts as medical data points is what elevates someone from just being a dog owner to being a true caretaker.
Which brings us to a perfect summary of who this breed actually suits. Based on all of this psychology and physiology, who is the ideal Whippet owner?
It's a specific profile, for sure.
Surprisingly, they are incredibly well suited for first-time owners, if that owner is gentle.
Right.
If they strictly respect leash safety and door management, if they accept the biological limits of recall when prey drive kicks in, and if they genuinely want a warm, highly affectionate, Velcro-like companion in the house.
And conversely, they are a terrible fit for someone who wants a rugged, off-leash, all-weather dog, or someone who falsely believes that training requires a heavy hand and dominance.
So what does this all mean? The ultimate lesson here is that success with this highly specialized animal comes entirely from working with their nature rather than constantly fighting against it.
You can't force a sighthound to be a golden retriever.
No, but if you lean into what makes their specific neurology unique, you get an incredible companion.
It is a relationship built entirely on mutual understanding, calm communication, and proactive environmental management.
Which leaves me with one final thought to mull over for you listening at home. If living successfully with a dog like a Whippet requires us to constantly monitor doors, install secure fences, deeply analyze their subtle stares and stiffened body language,
It's a lot of work.
it is, and strictly manage their outdoor exposure and completely change our own tone of voice to remain calm and low pressure. How much of this relationship is actually about us domesticating the dog, and how much of it is about the dog retraining us to be hyper-aware of the world around us?
This raises an important question indeed. Perhaps that dog, quiet and invisible under the sofa blanket, has been the one training us all along.
Something to think about the next time you see a squirrel dart across your yard. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.